What is branches on Git? Yeah.
So the primary purpose of using branches is to enable the parallel development so that multiple team members can work on a piece of work independently. And once their work is reviewed, then they will integrate their work or sort of combine their work and commit it to the main branch.
Yep.
That's
Exactly,
my view.
Sukhvinder.
Yeah. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. So, like Sukhvinder mentioned, it is to create the independent line of work. I can give you a simple example. Let's say we have one branch which is from where all the changes goes to production, which can be master or main branch. Okay. But at the same time, you cannot open this branch for development work, right? You cannot have the like if from this branch, if the change is going to production, right? You need some other place where the developers can work. So in Git, you can create a branch out of this production branch, let's say called a feature branch. Here all can developers work. And when they are satisfied with the changes, with satisfy, I mean you run your test in your pre-prod environment, like say, okay. And once you are satisfied that your test is working as expected, you are going to do what you are going to do. You are going to merge those changes back to this branch. Okay. So that is a simple illustration how the branches work in Git, and it is pretty simple. Okay. Now I have a second question for you guys. If you run a command called git branch, you will see that there is a branch which has been created called a master. Okay. You don't need to do anything. As soon as you are going to commit to Git, it will create that branch for you. Okay. Now go back to this GitHub uh, where most of you work. Let's say I create a new repository. I will say testing branches. Let me check in the README file. Here you will see this will set main as a default branch. Change the default name in your settings. Okay. So let me click here. And it is creating this main branch for us, right? Now, anyone who's using Git for a time, here you are seeing the default branch as master, right? But in GitHub, we are seeing a default branch as main. Anyone know what is the difference between this main branch versus the master branch? Why we are seeing these two different things in a case of a Git versus a GitHub? Anyone know what is the difference between this main versus master branch? And why we are seeing this two different naming scheme in Git versus GitHub?
One reason I can think of is the terminology. So the
Yeah,
master doesn't sound good. I think that is the reason we have
yeah,
renamed it as main. I mean,
exactly. I mean, this is not only for Git. If you look at the Jenkins, Jenkins earlier is something uses a term same master versus all its worker node. Now they are saying it's a worker. They use a term called a potentially offensive language like slave, but now they have renamed it to workers, right? So it's nothing to do with any technical thing. It's just a potentially offensive language they were using, and they renamed it to main. But you still have an option that you can rename it. So let me see, check over here. And let me say, if you want to use the name for this particular branch as a master, you can change it. You still have an option. Why do you guys think that we can rename it? I mean, is there is there a requirement you are seeing over here that we need to rename it back to master? So I can give you my example. In my case, most of my like a CI/CD system, they have the code written which taking master into consideration. Like master is the branch from where we are going to do a cutover to the production. So there are n number of places I will say that where we have the reference as a master. Okay. So there are our developers, they are still working to update those references, but in those cases, like all those edge or corner cases, uh, we can still use the name master. But in GitHub, the default branch, if you are going to create, or the default repo you are going to create, it will come as a main as a default branch. Okay, but you always rename it. And like Neha mentioned, master is in local, yes, but you have an option to rename it. So how can you rename it? Let me create this repository. Okay. Okay, because I have created the README, you don't see an option, but let me show you one thing. I will say testing branch. Okay, public. Let me not create a README at this time. I want to show you something. Okay, so testing branch, and this is the way you can rename a branch. So for example, if you want main to be your default branch, you can rename it using this command. Okay, and even for this testing branch, let me show you. Create a new file, test file, let's say. I need to give it a name, test file, make the change. You will see that default branch is coming as a main branch. So just want to show you, like in case of GitHub, the main is a default branch. Okay. Now the next question. Now, in order to create a branch, let's say first we will try from a GitHub and then we will try locally. In order to create a branch in GitHub, it's pretty simple. Let's say I am going to create a Git test branch. So this will call create test branch. And this will create a branch for me. Okay. And what the branch creation means, it is just going to point to that particular commit in the branch, and it will copy all the content. So if you see the here, we have created this file called a test file in main branch. But when we created the test branch, it copied all the content from that test branch, or from the main branch to the test branch. So creation of branch means at that particular point in time, whatever the commit which is present on that branch, it is just been copied to this particular branch. Okay. Now, if you want to do it on the command line, it is as simple as that. We can do git branch. And if you look at this git branch, you will see now we have the two options. One is called master branch and second one is called test branch. Okay. And you see a small asterisk in front of it. Anyone know what do this mean, asterisk in front of this master branch?
Yeah. So the currently active branch is a master branch. So the work we are doing is the checked out branch is the master branch. It will apply to the master branch.
Yes. And do you know from where Git read this information?
Not sure about that.
Okay. No
Head,
worries.
the
Yes,
head parameter.
exactly. So like I mentioned earlier, when we run this command called git init, it set up the environment for you, the Git environment for you. And what I mean by that, if you go to .ls.al, it created this hidden repository called Git. And once again, I'm telling you guys don't need to know about this information, but it's always good to have this information. So there's a file called, like what Neha mentioned, head. Here, where it is showing that it is currently referencing head to the master. And if you go here, there is reference head and there is a file called master. And if you try to do this, it's an ASCII test. And do this. It's pointing to a commit, CC this month. And let me show you this git lg, the alias I have given to you, CC88943. CC88943, right? So this is what I'm trying to come from here, that the branch is nothing. It's just a pointer reference to a particular commit. So this master branch is just a reference to that commit that we have seen over there. Okay. Now, in order to switch to a different branch, like we have seen this test branch, just need to run a command called git switch test branch. Oh, sorry, I'm not on the git repo. Let me run it from here. And now we are switched to the test branch. The reason you have seen this error, the fatal this operation must be run in the working tree, because in order for to run this command, git need to look inside this .git folder. Okay, and because I was inside that git folder, that's why git got confused. Now, the same thing which you guys have said, that if I now look at this head, it is now referencing to the test branch. And if I do this git lg, the areas we have created earlier, now both the test branch and the master, they are pointing to the same head, to the same commit. So branch is nothing, it's just a pointer reference to a particular commit, which in this case is this guy. Okay. So Garvit said we are on that branch, that is the folder called head. And the head contains nothing, it's just a reference. So that's why, like I mentioned, branches are called reference. And it has been cleared that it is stored inside this reference folder, inside .git. Okay. Now, if some of you have seen it carefully, we are now switched to this test branch. In order to move to that test branch, I use a command called git switch. Okay. And anyone who is using Git for some time, you know that in earlier days, we used to use a command called git checkout. And now we are using something called git switch. Anyone know what is the difference between this checkout? So I can do something. So right now I'm at test branch. I can use git checkout and branch called master. And if I look at here, now my head is pointing to master. So what is the difference between this checkout git versus git checkout? I mean, what is the difference between switching to a branch using checkout command versus switching to a branch using switch?
To switch, I think we need to have a branch existing, and with checkout, it creates also if the branch is not existing. I'm not sure.
Even with switch, you have a parameter. Okay, let me show you. So you are correct. If we do give this -b parameter with checkout, I can create a branch. But even with switch, if I do -c parameter, I can create a branch. So this is what you are trying to say, that with switch, we cannot create a branch?
Okay, maybe with the parameters, yes. But if we do just git checkout, let's say feature one, so it would just create a branch if it's not existing. But okay, maybe with the switch, we have to give parameters and we can, I'm not sure. I was just.
No worries. Yeah. So, I mean, you're partially correct, but just to give you a simple idea, switch is a new command. And the reason they have created this new command out of rather than using the checkout. So checkout can use for different things. So let me give you a simple example. Where are we? We are on master branch. So let me create a file called abc.txt and git add this abc.txt. Okay, if I check the status, git status is equal to this one. So earlier days, like I told you, now this file is in staging area. And somehow I feel it out that, okay, I don't want to commit this file to my main repository. I did it by mistake that I put it in a staging area, but I don't want to commit this file. So using checkout and using this abc.txt, I can roll back this file from staging area back to my working area. Okay. And like you guys have mentioned, or I have showed you, that we can even use to check out to this branch. So the functionality of this checkout command become convoluted, that we can use it to check out to master also. We can use it to restore it back to the previous version of the file. So that's why they have, I mean, all the new versions starting from 2 point, I don't know the exact specific version, but 2 point something 2 version, they make this switch as a default thing. That, okay, if you need to switch to a branch, just remember that switch is only for branches. If you have tags, you have a particular commit, then still you need to use this checkout command. But if you need to switch to a particular branch, then switch is a better option, and this is what the recommended one. Similarly, like I mentioned, if you need to roll back to a previous version, earlier we used to use this command called git checkout hyphen hyphen this weird syntax and the file name. Move a file back from staging area to my working area. Okay. But now you see that we have this new command called git restore hyphen hyphen stage and the file name. So basically, they are trying to make the functionality as simple as possible rather than like we have the single command which is doing all the things and creating a confusion. Now we have a different command called git restore and git checkout to perform the same thing. Any confusion? So basically, they have rather than checkout, they have break this functionality into git switch and git restore.